Hi everyone, Leo Kale here. In this video, I'll show you how I come up with a romantic watercolor painting concept, then transfer it to my artist watercolor paper, then use my 6-step repeatable process to create a romantic and loose watercolor painting. For me personally, I enjoy creating watercolor paintings that infer some sort of story or narrative. One of my favorite watercolor artists, a gentleman named Joe Zukvik, many of you have probably heard of him, made a really great quote in one of his videos where he said that a painting without a story is just a picture. And I couldn't agree more with that idea. So with that being said, let's get started on this fun Easter Bunny painting I've entitled Busted. Many of my paintings have been inspired by things that I've seen while walking my dog Wyeth. And yes, he is named after one of my favorite artists, Andrew Wyeth. So I came across these spring daffodil in my neighbor's yard, and I thought that they would be a great subject for a springtime watercolor painting, but they needed to be more than just the flowers. So I immediately thought of the upcoming holidays of Easter and thought that adding a rabbit would be appropriate. So I found these images of cottontails on Google. I then digitally transferred this photograph into the daffodils, and the only thing missing were some brightly colored eggs at the bottom of the scene to complete the story. This digitally composited image was then projected onto my Arches rough watercolor paper, as you can see here. This is a great way to transfer an image to your paper. Here is the drawing from that projection, and we're almost ready to begin, but I want you to see my watercolor setup. It's very important to make sure that you have all your tools ready to go as you begin painting. You can't be looking for things as you're putting paint down that will kind of interrupt your flow. So make sure you have everything ready to go before you start painting. In a scene like this, I will generally attack the maybe the most difficult aspect of the painting, and that being the rabbit's head. It's important that the rabbit's head have some degree of accuracy. Otherwise, it will kind of stick out like a sore thumb in the final painting. So I want to make sure that I have some amount of accuracy in how I'm depicting the rabbit. You'll see me using some very warm hues here. It's very important to use warm hues on this initial layer, as this will help energize the final painting. Much of these warm hues will be overlaid with cool shadows, but I like to be a little more inventive at this stage and look for warm hues that you can introduce into the rabbit here. He looks to be gray brown, but in reality, there's some beautiful warm undertones in the rabbit, and this will really help enliven him in the final piece. So I'm now moving down to the area of the painting uh, where the eggs would appear. And you can see that I'm spotting in some warm hues here. These warm hues used for the eggs will generally influence everything around them. So you really don't have to paint just the eggs. You can just paint the general area. We will better define the eggs by use of negative painting, using some cool shadows to define the egg shapes in the next stage of the painting. But for now, really, you can just paint wet into wet and allow these warm hues to kind of influence everything that would be near them. When I execute a watercolor painting, I always use a methodical 6-step process. As we progress through this video, you'll see all 6 steps. But really, this is the first step, and this is to create what I call the glow layer. This is a layer of pigment that is quite translucent, allowing the light to permeate it and hit the white paper and bounce back through it, kind of like stained glass effect. So you'll see this entire area of this first layer painted in this manner with a very, very warm, energetic hues, which is also very important to help energize the final painting. If you start off with too many cool hues, your painting won't have the energy or excitement that it could have if you use mostly warm hues at this stage. So what I'm doing now is looking for the kind of the leaves that you can see through the stalks of the daffodils, and again, very warm hues to help make the final painting vibrant. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just basically looking in between these green stalks to find the forest floor, consisting of a bunch of brightly, I guess, bright brown orange leaves, and this will really help the green stalks to pop in the final painting. So cruising along now, I continue to look for the warm hues within the scene. You'll see me using a soft squirrel-haired mop. This this allows for a very soft looking initial layer. There's really no need for any brush marks at this stage of the painting. So really, using a big mop allows you to very gently introduce hues to one another and create a very soft, glowing initial layer. There were actually some evergreens in the very background of this scene. I thought that the blue green would be a very nice complement to some of the warm magentas that we had placed at the bottom of the painting. So this was kind of nice to find these greens at the top of the painting. You can see I'm painting them in fairly strongly. These will dry back considerably to maybe half this strength. So it's important to keep that in mind as you're putting this initial layer, to make sure that you're painting strong enough so that when the hues dry back, that they still have good vibrancy. So you'll see me using some fairly intense hues, knowing full well that they will fade back when this layer is dried. So adding some of the blue sky here in the background, you're going to see me tilt the board here somewhat. It it's very important to work on a surface that you can pick up and move and tilt and allow gravity to help pull these wet washes together. It's um it's a very nice thing to have these different hues intermingle one another on their own without you mechanically combining them with a brush. So just a very nice effect in watercolor is to always make use of gravity to pull your washes into one another. So now it's time to address the actual flowers in the scene, and I'm using some yellows, some cad yellows, a little bit of spring green added to the yellow. Um, the white petals have kind of a yellowish green hue to them, tint to them. But some of the flowers I want to leave. Some of the flower petals will remain white, and very important to leave some white in your watercolor painting. I often neglect to do this, and I end up with a painting that's maybe not as high contrast as I like. So very important to leave an ample amount of white shapes in your painting. And you'll see me leave the white petals of the main flower here, mostly white of the paper. So now I'm beginning to address the yellow daffodils in the scene using pure cad yellow. The cad yellow will fade back somewhat, so I'm putting it down in a fairly bold fashion, knowing full well that will fade back. Um, the yellow of the flower buds will slightly influence the petals around them, but you'll see me leave the main flower here, leave the petals the white of the paper, because you need to have some white in your watercolor painting. Otherwise, you end up with a painting that has no contrast. So very important to leave an ample amount of white shapes within your painting. The stalks of the daffodils have this very kind of a dull. I'm using chromium green at this stage, but it's kind of a dull green look and feel to them. So putting that in now, and I'll probably warm it up with a little bit of yellow, but they mostly have this kind of cool green effect to them. So that's kind of important to have some amount of accuracy, I guess, to the scene. So you'll see me spotting in. Now I'm going to warm up. I'm going to warm up some of the stems here with some yellow green, just to add a little more differentiation to this part of the painting. Okay, now that the initial warm translucent layer, I call the glow layer, has been finished and also thoroughly dried, it's now time to introduce middle to middle dark values. This layer is really a translucent shadow layer. Most of the application will be in what they call negative painting. So I'm painting around shapes to better reveal them and make them pop. But there are a few places at the top where I've done actually positive painting, where I've used the cool shadows to indicate some trees and whatnot in the far background. But primarily, this layer is about negative painting and revealing the shapes within your scene. The guiding principle for this step 3 of 6, these cool interconnected shadows, is translucency. I'm constantly aware of that I'm painting in a translucent manner. Now, some of these applications here may look dark, but in fact they will dry back and be very translucent. But we're not ready for any opaque dark sheds. So you really want to make sure that this layer is applied in really almost a wash type fashion with a soft brush. You'll see me using a small mop brush here, which allows me to put the pigment down in very much like a wash. And you can see me revealing the stalks of this main flower here, again by negative painting. So this is how you make shapes pop in the final painting, is by revealing them with negative painting. I often think of this as sculpting. You're sculpting the shapes with this layer of cool interconnected hues. So that's maybe a good way to think about it. Think about it as a sculptor. You'll see here that I'm mixing up some kind of purple type hue here with some opera pink and some blue. This purple is being used to decrease the saturation or intensity of the flowers in the background. This will help make the flowers in the middle ground and foreground here pop a bit more. But this is how you de-intensify a color, is by using its complement. So using this purple wash over the existing cad yellow will really knock their intensity back without really darkening them. So a very important idea to use a complement to desaturate a color. So continuing along with the flowers here, I am giving these foreground or middle ground flowers a little bit more definition. Again, by using a purplish color to complement the flower and show the recesses in the flower. This will help give these flowers volume. So that's what I'm doing now. So now it's time to revisit our star of our show, Peter, by looking for the middle values within the rabbit's form. This will really help give the rabbit a sense of three-dimensionality. So I'm carefully looking for middle values, and same idea, cooling down some of the warm hues that were initially put down for the rabbit. I am now cooling down. So I'm looking for shadows and things to help reveal his paws here and his underbelly. But there's a lot of white on his belly, so kind of make sure that we maintain the whites there. But again, just looking for these middle values as washes and laying those in with a fairly soft brush. Okay, now that these middle values have been completed, it's now time to look for some of the darkest darks in the scene. Here you can see I'm adding some very strong darks, probably some neutral tint, maybe a little ultramarine blue to the rabbit's eye. This darkest darks against the white highlight of his eye will really draw the viewer's attention to the head of the rabbit. So this was a strategic plan of action, was to create this area of high contrast within the rabbit's head to draw the viewer's attention. This idea of using darks in a watercolor painting, so many of my students are hesitant to reach for the dark hues. The dark hues are so important. They create contrast within a watercolor painting. They really complete the quartet of values that we have. So don't be afraid to reach for the darks. They're extremely important to help reveal the light in a watercolor painting. But you can see me looking for some of the dark details in the rabbit's face, and you can see how it immediately gives greater volume to this head, which is kind of a elliptoid type shape. But again, don't be hesitant to reach for your darks to add punch to your painting. Okay, on to one of the nearly last steps of the process, and that is to add details to your watercolor painting. This particular painting doesn't have a lot of details, um, but the stalks of the flowers have some beautiful striations or stripes within them. So I'm using a very long hair brush called a rigger to put in these very fine lines within the stalks. This will help to add visual interest and not allow the painting to look too soft. So details are a very important part of the watercolor process. This particular painting, like I said, didn't have a lot of details, but you can see the difference that these striations in the stalks make. It makes the painting look less soft and have more visual interest. So the last step in all of my watercolor paintings is to look for some strategic highlights within the painting. So here I'm using a little titanium white mixed with some cad yellow to add definition to the flowers. This will help draw attention to the focal area of the painting. Never be afraid to use a little titanium white to add highlights at the end of your painting. Very important to give a little snap, a little sparkle to your painting. But I know some watercolor folks frown on using white, but I think it's perfectly appropriate thing to do at the end, again, to draw attention to your focal area. Okay, so the painting is finished. I am removing the masking tape from the edges of the painting. This is a very satisfying thing to do at the end of the process. The white edging protected by the masking tape really acts as a mat board and will help you to better evaluate your finished painting. So always a fun thing to do is to get rid of that tape and check out your painting. So the very last thing to do is to sign your painting. Always take pride in your work and let everybody know who did it. So this is the finished painting entitled Busted. Pretty happy with it. I like the amount of shapes that are popping in the scene. Those were created by negative painting around many of the flower petals and stalks. I like the glow of the rabbit. Pretty happy with that. And I also like the warmth that the eggs bring at the bottom of the painting. So I'd love to hear any comments from everyone. And let me know what you think. And I will see you again on another video. Thanks for watching. So whenever I create a painting that's maybe a little less than amazing, it's usually because I've overlooked or not emphasized one of these key attributes of a good watercolor painting. So I put together this little evaluation chart, and it's a handy tool, and a lot of my students really enjoy using it. And I'm making this available on my website, and I'll give you a link to that in the description below. But you can kind of rate each aspect of your painting, and if you end up with a good score, then you may have a very nice watercolor on your hands. Download the PDF file and get a color copy made, and then have it laminated, and you'll be able to use this chart over and over again for each one of your paintings. You can download this file on my website at leokalewatercolors.com, and while you're on the download page, if you would, and if you'd like to hear more from me about workshops and more painting videos, go ahead and join my team and give me your email, and I promise it will not go anywhere other than my computer. So if you would do that, that would really help me out. And please enjoy your report card, and let me know if it helps you. I would love to hear some feedback.